Why do you like corn so much?
Why do I like corn so much? Well, because it's like knowing your mother. You know, everybody has a mother, right? Yeah. Yeah. So it's like that corn takes care of you, it feeds you, it blesses you, it keeps you warm because the energy that it makes keeps you warm.
Why is corn so important?
Well, corn is important for us because we use corn not only for food, but also we use corn to pray with. We use cornmeal to pray with, and also corn pollen to pray with. We use corn in a lot of our ceremonies. So that's why corn is so important to us.
I would consider corn the most important crop in the world. Right now, in terms of the Americas, corn has always been the teacher. And to look at it from a kind of ethno-cultural perspective, corn is what built the civilizations of the Americas.
Corn is important for many, many reasons. For us, as Pueblo people, there's a saying that sometimes they'll say is that the corn is the same as the people. And that's just, in that statement it says just how important corn is to us, because in a way it is the same as us. We don't think of it as an object away from us. It's so much a part of who we are that it is us.
So corn is always a very important part, and I think of all the people in northern New Mexico. Almost everywhere you go, if you go to a wedding or you go to a funeral, there's going to be corn in one form or another.
The grain wants to be held in a local area, and it wants to be held by a local people, and it wants to have a cultural heritage to it, because it really does feed the people and it feeds the wildlife and it creates a landscape.
If you're coming from South to Central America and North America, one of the most important food in any Indian table, you are going to find corn.
Corn is a friend. Corn is part of our cultural memory, and what it makes us feel like gives us part of our identity.
We believe that corn was a gift to us from our mother, the Creator. Very simple answer.
I don't know where it came from, but when I know it was already there when I was born there. I really don't know where it came from, so I don't know where they get that. That's the only thing I don't know.
Corn developed in the central highlands of Mexico, but then it moved and it also developed different characters with different people. And like every grain, corn becomes fixed to a place, so it becomes like a land race. And you can find the same thing with wheat varieties. You might only find that variety in a certain valley. And the same thing with corn. There's lots of different types, and it belongs to different people.
And I bring news from the place where modern archaeologists first found domesticated corn, which is the Tehuacan Valley in the state of Puebla in Mexico. The corn there dated back to, using modern carbon dating, dated back to somewhere between 4,000 and 7,000 BC.
In this mural behind me, which I did about 4 years ago, it kind of says what I'm talking about, because it's all about the theme of corn. And if you see all these designs at the bottom, they're all circular designs. And each of these tell a story. Each of these are stories. And they're circular because it's a continuous storyline. And this is sort of the symbolic version of this up here, this story up here. If you were to simplify this picture way up here and simplify it, you'd get a pattern like down here. But up here you have a whole cycle of a story about corn, but it's also the story about Pueblo people. And you can start over here, for example, way up over in the corner you see a man, he's planting a field of corn. See him, he's planting. And they're growing. You can see how the corn is bigger, bigger, bigger. It's showing the time it takes for it to grow big. And you see the guy, he's out there waiting for the plants to grow. And then this woman with her grandchild or whoever picking corn. And then the many different things that are done with the corn. There's harvesting, there's eating, boiling, storing it, grinding it up, turning it into tortillas and different kinds of foods. And then way up over here at the left top is an old man, and he's holding a bowl. And what's in the bowl is cornmeal. And he's giving a blessing, he's making a prayer. And when we pray, we throw cornmeal. And that's our way of feeding the spirits and saying, here, we give this to you as our gift. And in that way, not only does the corn keep us alive in a physical way, so that we stay strong and healthy in our bodies, but it also is part of keeping us strong inside our spirit, that it's part of who we are when we make prayers.
Traditionally speaking, the relationship with the earth revolved around corn. It was also our sense of time. When is the growing season? When do you care for the corn? When do you harvest the corn for certain food types? How do you store the corn so you can survive over the winter? So it was also your sense of time, your sense of place in the ecology and seasons.
My mom uses what we get from our field, but she usually say the one that are good, and the long one, and she say those for the next time to use it. So she keeps those, and then that's the one she replants it again.
That's what most of these are, and that's what, like this one, see the corn will go all the way here to the end. And
They're nice.
yeah, and long, and the kernels are big, and I think that's the only reason that we've been doing real good to corn, you know. And then when we first started corn, I told my boys that save corn like this. And, well, most of it is nice, but we just go extra mile and we pick out some nice ones like this. And the result is, you know, they come out real nice when you're harvesting. When
My mom and I would always be looking for a seed that would produce by the 4th of July. So every year we would aim for having corn by the 4th of July. And at that time, when I was growing up, there were not too many corn was imported into the Española Valley or to Embudo where I live. So we were always the first ones to have fresh corn on the cob. And to me, that was always one thing that I remember from my childhood.
Corn is not just one plant. Just like every human is different, corn is this wonderful diversity of locally adapted varieties, just like each people on the planet have adapted their life ways to different conditions. That's true with corn as well.
I like to think about the sustainable agriculture. Sustainable, that word is thrown around with scientists, economists. They use that word in a lot of different ways. Sustainable agriculture is what I like to think about. If you look at the root words of sustainable agriculture, you're really talking about sustained culture. Sustaining the cultures, because it's the cultures that had these seeds. Me coming from northern New Mexico, we had these seeds. We had these cultures. We were taking care of these things the way our Native American grandmothers taught us to take care of the corn, the beans, the squash, the chile, these kinds of things. And the way that our European grandfathers taught us how to take care of the habas, the alverjon, the trigo, the animals. So we had this system that was integrated with the ecology, with the culture, that evolved with the old world and the new world technologies. And we created our own space here in northern New Mexico. And that's how we existed up until recent times.
So with any of the crops or even the animals that have been domesticated, they really do belong to the domestic life. They belong to people. They belong to the household. Corn can't go wild again. So once it's been put into this ear, if the ear falls to the ground, it doesn't make corn. It actually has to be carefully handled all by the hand and taken apart and planted out. And it really belongs to your household. So it's often brought into the household and kept in a seed place, often close to the earth throughout the winter, and then really cared for as like a domestic plant.
And I've been living on the same piece of land that my ancestors settled there in 1725. So I'm sure that corn has always been part of the family in one form or another. One of the stories that I remember about my dad saying that when he was growing up in the early 1900s, that they used to go to dances on horseback, that when they would come back from the dances, my grandmother would always get up and make fresh corn tortillas right on the coals on the earthen stove. And that's something that I always tell my kids, that story, because to me, I think that's very important, that they remember what how my father grew up, and it's part of their story and it's part of my story, and so that they can transmit the same stories to their kids later on.
As a child in the 70s, cartoons were a big thing, of course, and I just wanted to stay in and watch cartoons as well. I didn't want to go out and irrigate and weed and or walk through the field to gather the corn with my grandmother, or gather the pollen, because that's what, the earliest the better. She used to go out while it was still dark, and just right when dawn was breaking, she would gather the corn pollen, and she always wanted my help on that so that I could get that extra blessings as well. And it was just a beautiful time, peaceful and quiet, and now I appreciate that so much.
What did they used to do with crows?
Well, crows have always been around. They get their share of the corn, and some people chase them off. Some people find that pretty futile. They just always say, there's always enough for everybody. So even if there's corn that gets knocked down and it gets eaten up a little bit by the crows, you just break that part off and you can eat the rest, right? Corn, they're not going to eat a whole corn the way people eat the corn, do they? They tear it all apart, and then they go and get another one, and they tear it all apart, and they go get another one, they tear another one apart. But if you have lots of corn, you have enough for the crows too. Yeah, because sometimes that's all they have to eat too. So they're there.
If they can't find food.
If they can't find food, that's right.
Anything they can eat.
Mm-hmm.
A crow. Yeah, the crow that can really get into the corn. They tear down this corner house, and then they eat all the corn down. And they're the first thing you when you plant them, when they grow about this much, and then there's a peridot, the next one. Peridot, they get the seeds out, and then there's about only one corn can come up. The rest of the seeds, they take it out. There's peridot. So those two, I know that they can steal your corn, peridot and the crow.
Well, crows like corn too, but you just have to work at keeping them away.
How did they do that? How did they do it here?
How do they do it? Well, 22 works wonders. But they've done like scarecrows and noisemakers along the edge of the along the fences and stuff, and that usually kind of takes away. I don't know how effective they are, but they've tried those things.
But I can't do anything but a crow. It's just we can just make a scarecrow in the middle of the field. That's the only way they can stay away. My mom used to make that coffee can, and then she put a white cloth on it, and then make ash with the eyes in it, like that. Make it eyes. Like there's some a man standing there. Yeah, that's how she used to do it. Put it in the middle of the field and everywhere, so they can stay away.
Well, there's all kind of foods that are made from corn here. There's pasoli, and then there's they grind the corn up to make porridge. They make dumplings out of corn. They make kind of like a heavy bread out of corn. There's regular corn bread, corn pancakes, corn paper bread. There's a lot of dishes that are made with corn. They use corn in stews. They use corn in their baking. We even make a drink, a real thin corn gruel to drink. So there's a lot of stuff that's made with corn. We use the corn husks. We use the corn stalks. We use the corn pollen. We use the corn silk. So we use almost every part of the corn.
That's when I say correlate, I correlate the north, central, and south, making almost the same thing. Only the difference they use in different words. For example, we use in tostado, it's in Spanish, the roast corn, we call hanca in my Indian language. For the people in Mexico, they call esquite, that's the roast corn. For the Hopi people, the roast corn is chuti, is roast corn. And then they using, for example, the way my people using corn.
The culture of the corn, the culture of the beans, the culture of Chile is also important. It's not so much having a handful of white corn. It's knowing what to do with it. I guess you can get the white corn and you can do genetic markers and these kinds of things and figure out what kind of characteristics would be good for the next hybrid or the next genetically modified corn. But what about all the variety of things you can do that with that corn in a traditional context? What about making chicos and everything associated with that food preparation activity? Having an horno, a mud oven at your house that was made from the earth with your own hands. These are not things you buy at Walmart. These are things that have to be taught generation after generation about how to make a mud oven, how to heat it up just right, when to pick the corn, when it's still sugar. If you miss those 2 weeks, then all your sugar turns to starch and you won't have any chicos. You will be left with pozole. And then how do you prepare pozole? Traditionally in these areas we used to gather the limestone, cook it in the oven to make cal, slake lime, that you then boiled the pozole corn, weakened the shell, boiled it again, and you would have the pozole. Same kind of corn, different kind of preparation, different timing. Chaquewe, same thing, toast the corn, grind it up for breakfast. Those are the things that have value. Those are the cultural knowledge that is intertwined with the generations of development. That is the true technological development of all the different foods you can get from a single crop. And what do you do with the rest that's left? We never let anything go to waste here. See, the gene hunters, they're looking at the one little gene. But what about the whole context with which that corn developed, with which that gene that they find so precious developed? The gene isn't what is precious. It is the whole cultural context that allowed for the development of the gene that is valuable.
Do your farmers sing to your corn?
Do we sing to the corn? All the time. A lot of our songs are songs about corn. And so we sing to it, and then the men are encouraged to sing to the corn in their fields because their songs help the corn grow because then by singing songs to it, they make the corn happy.
Sunflowers, always there were sunflowers around because that helped bring in all the little birds, all the little tiny birds that would come around, and of course then the birds would fly around on the corn, help pollinate the corn. And one of the things that they used to say is, if you took the time to sing to the corn, you know, when they're little, when they just come out of the ground, they're really short like that, green. If you sang to them little songs, any kind of songs, if you sang to them, you'd help them grow. Just like a little child likes to hear their mother sing lullabies, you know. You know, when your mom sings lullabies to you, that helps you grow because you remember it. And that's what they say, when you sing to the corn, it helps them to grow. It helps them to come up because they come up happy then because they hear somebody singing to them like that.
They don't sing. I don't know about some other people if they did. Never heard of that.
Well, there were songs that went along with actually grinding. When you do grinding, you sing songs to help you keep going. It's hard work. And of course, there's all the harvest feast day songs that all the Pueblos have, which are all corn songs about the corn maidens are coming. And there'll be the different colors from different directions the corn maidens are coming.
You know what I like about corn? I like all the colors that it comes in, you know? Because when they have dances and things, you see all different colored corn that have grown in the fields. You know, yellow corn, blue corn, white corn, red corn, black corn, speckled corn, all kinds of corn. And it's just, when you see it all in a basket like that, it just looks like a basket full of a rainbow, you know, a rainbow of corn. That's why I like corn.
I think there's so many colors of corn because we thought they were very beautiful. I really think that's the reason. If you saw an ear, the old ears of corn had all the different colors in them. And so they would pick out those ones and grow those out. And then pretty soon you have an ear of just white corn, or an ear of just blue corn, or an ear of yellow corn, so on. But it was beautiful. And each of those colors means something. And just like when you have a favorite color, people have always had favorite colors, that each color has meant something different to them.
Why are there different colors of corn?
It's a good question. I don't know why. Probably there's different colors of corn because there's so many different colors of people.
Do I worry about corn? Yeah, I do. You know, you hear those traditional stories about how corn used to grow when people would talk to it or sing to it, and now it's like maybe we've forgotten those songs, or maybe our hearts are not into it as much when we sing those particular songs. The corn is changing. It doesn't grow as strong. It doesn't have the same I don't know, energy behind it, I guess.
It's put your head to thinking about this situation. In your classroom, you have some boy or one of your friends they have called. If you are not very careful with this person is sick, is going to pollute all the classroom. All the guys that are in this classroom, they are coming to be sick slowly. Why? Because this virus is going to pollute this area. When we're talking about genetic organism food or genetic engineers, what happened with this? I hope it's not what I am thinking is going to happen. For sure, it's going to pollute the corn. It's going to pollute also the other kind of the organisms or the life exists in these areas. What's that? It's the insects, it's the earth, it's the trees, all what you can see around this small place. And then we're beginning to say thank you to these people they are still doing and destroying this planet.
I think the concern now is all the genetic stuff going on, because when you have lines of genetic corn growing in a certain area with a certain group of people for hundreds and hundreds of years, that corn is adjusted to that climate, to those people, to their particular body systems, to that particular land base. And when you start messing with the genetic makeup of these, then you're messing with a whole line of things. It's not just, oh, we have a better corn to go put somewhere else that has no relation to anything. You're messing up this whole cycle of events. There's no, you can't disconnect something like that without affecting everything, without affecting the whole system. And that to me is the most scariest part of what's going on now with corn.
Today, we look at how important corn is, not just for grain, for animals. Farmers growing thousands and thousands of acres of corn, and it's found in virtually every kind of processed food today. High fructose corn syrup, corn starch. And as corn was the teacher for native cultures, corn is still our teacher. Now corn is teaching us about genetics, has taught us about a relationship with nature. And so these kinds of things have helped us survive as a people and develop the consciousness, the land-based culture that we have. You know, a lot of people now, they don't think about corn every day, but if we were to take the corn away from them, they would be suffering greatly.
It's one of the biggest issues, and we can't sort of turn the clock back, but we have to find a way to really find these qualities that corn has held, and those are qualities also that have really supported people for centuries. Keep them within the culture of the people and the landscape.